Some people ask whether a president makes any difference in the fight against abortion. Get some clear answers next on Defending Life. Hello, my name is Janet Morana. I'm the Executive Director of Priests for Life. I also co-founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. And many of you might have tuned in to the brand new program called The Catholic View for Women here on EWTN, where I'm featured with my co-hosts, Teresa Tomeo and Astrid Bennett Gutierrez. Welcome to our program. And currently, Father Pavone is currently busy traveling around the country, preaching and teaching the pro-life message, especially for this important election. And he's still at the helm of Priests for Life. But today, I'm joined with our Associate Director, Father Denis Wilde. Welcome to our program, Father.
Thank you, Janet. It's great to be here back at EWTN.
Right. And I know you've been with Priests for Life a very long time. You want to just fill our viewers in a little bit of your history?
Yes, I came in after teaching at Villanova University for a number of years, and I joined Priests for Life in 1998. So I've been here a good number of years, and I was Associate Director for the last 6, and it's been a wonderful experience traveling around the country and finding the different parishes and the vibrancy of the people in the pro-life effort. It's really amazing, and I think people need to know that.
Right. Well, you know, Father, traditionally on the program, we like to start with prayer always, sure. And we have here our pro-life reflections for every day, which we know is written by Father Pavone and available for our viewers at Priests for Life. And let's look at our reflection for today. First, we're going to start with a passage from 2 Timothy. Preach the message, be persistent in doing so, whether in season or out of season. Convince, reprove, and encourage, but with great patience and instruction. Do you want to hear your parish priest talk more about abortion and the pro-life movement? The first place to start is to listen to your priest and learn how he thinks. What is he most interested in and passionate about? Then what you find out, link that issue with the abortion issue.
Lord, bless our priests and all who preach and teach your word. Free their hearts and open their lips so that they may speak up for the defenseless.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, of course, Father, you know, we have an important topic for today. Many people just ask, you know, what difference does it make if we have a pro-life president? You know, like, come on, you know, they just don't quite get it. Now, everyone just, I think, focuses on overturning Roe v. Wade, and they don't see the connection that having a pro-life president in office can really make.
Make many different things. He's the most powerful person with regards to decreasing or increasing the capacity of either abortion or to getting rid of abortion. First of all, his executive orders. You know, he can just, with a flash of a pen, write an executive order within the limits, of course, but in that executive branch of government, which goes out to many different people that all have to follow. And that could be to increase the amount of abortions through different works or not. Federal budget is another thing. The budget can help or hinder this whole issue. Then he can veto things. You've got to remember that going through the Congress, all of that takes place, the president can veto or he could sign something into effect.
Right, you know, so people don't realize that. They focus sometimes in on their congressmen or their senators about a particular bill. Like, for example, when we had the partial birth abortion ban, well, if we didn't have George Bush to approve the law, to sign it into law, we wouldn't have had the partial birth abortion ban. You know, so it's a whole combination that the president almost has to give like the seal of approval.
Our founding fathers got it right when they put that balance of power in there, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
It's important, really. It's not just the president, but it's also there's others, but the president is so important at the top of it all. Also, the federal bureaucracy. How many people? 7,000, I think it is, something like that he appoints. So that really influences quite a few people too. Then the federal judges, as well as the Supreme Court justices, which people have got to realize is extremely important. And on top of it all, not only just these things, but he has a bully pulpit. He can be a man who pushes his views, which are hopefully pro-life, but if they're pro-abortion, that's going to do damage. So very powerful, and the president can make a big difference, even though right now it may look like we're not overturning Roe v. Wade next year or whatever.
Right. Well, let's look back at the Supreme Court for a minute, Father, because people don't realize, first of all, that the president puts the name forth for the Senate to approve for the Supreme Court, but it's the president who makes that selection, number one. And then people don't realize, one year people were calling our office asking who to vote for Supreme Court judge. We don't vote for them, unfortunately. No. But the president puts forth their name and approved, they're there for life. So it's beyond the 4 or 8 years that president is in office. It's for life. Some of those justices sit on the Supreme Court for 3 or 4 decades.
Right. If they're young enough, and they'll stay on for a long time, as we've seen recently.
Very, very long time. So it's very critical when you think of, the next president we elect. There are several justices that are very elderly and probably within the next 4 years will retire. So whoever we elect to be the next president is going to have an opportunity probably to appoint at least 1 and maybe 2 Supreme Court judges. So people have to realize that that's a lifetime thing. Right. So this election is very important for that.
Very important, yes. Another thing that he does, of course, he also appoints not just the Supreme Court justices, but the federal districts and the appellate courts. There are 94 federal districts and there are 13 appellate courts. We sometimes see these things that are taking place and we read about that are, how do they ever come up to that decision or that conclusion as a justice or a judge? And maybe it's because of the philosophy of the president who has instigated that through the appointments.
Well, Father, we have a lot more to learn about how important the president's office is, especially for advancing the pro-life message. But we'll do that right after we come back from this break. Stay tuned to Defending Life. Welcome back to Defending Life, and today we're discussing how important the office of the president is in advancing the pro-life message. So, Father Denis, now we had already discussed about the importance of the Supreme Court, and why don't you take up our next point?
Okay, surely. The executive orders of the president, he can deal with this in a very swift way by giving certain orders that the federal departments and agencies need to follow. Some examples of that are, for example, federal dollars going to support foreign abortions. So the Mexico City policy was a policy that's been back and forth in different administrations on this. Right. It's been signed in, signed out. But basically, it's, again, our tax money in this country coming from the citizens should not go to support abortions overseas, and certainly not in this country either, but certainly not overseas. Another thing, too, is one could prohibit also the federal funding of embryonic stem cell research, which began some decades ago, not decades ago, but some years ago in the Bush administration. And that can play one way or the other. But again, that's federal funding for something which can be immoral. The other things that are on here could be the taxpayers' fund going to the United Nations Population Fund, which again aids China in its one-child policy in abortion. So things of that nature we have to be very careful about and recognize that the government, the president can direct these people because it falls under that executive department. So from the first day of administration, the president can unilaterally decide that taxpayers will have to subsidize taking the innocent human life. or can decide that they're not going to do that. So again, this is one area with the tax money that is something that plays very much strongly into the president's hands.
Right. Now, we just already mentioned that he also appoints close to 7,000 positions within the whole executive branch. These are federal positions, White House departments, agencies. And what people realize, obviously, if you have a pro-life president, then what's he going to do? He's going to put people in those positions who are like-minded, who have the heart for the pro-life movement. So therefore, when a law is passed, well, guess what? They deal with how it's going to be regulated and implemented and the language. So it will have a more pro-life spin to things if the people in all those different agencies have been appointed by a pro-life president. So that's very important.
Absolutely. And what you just said a key word there, language. The language is so important. We subtly get these things, and we read language. Language can be destructive,
right,
and it also can enhance life depending on how we're using it. And that flows from the philosophy of the president as well as the people he appoints. The other thing, too, is the presidential veto. This is extremely important to recognize the power of the president. You know, pro-life Congress can pass all sorts of bills at once, but if the president is pro-abortion, it's going to be defeated by a veto. On the other hand, if you have a person who is a pro-abortion Congress, it can be stopped by the veto of a pro-life president. Right. But basically, we're talking about to get that passage through for pro-life Congress or Senate, which we don't have today, but a Senate which could change and which, you know, whatever it can be, we have to have a supermajority. And so that supermajority, which would be 67 in the Senate and 290, I believe it is, in the House, that would be able to override a veto, but that's pretty hard to do. So again, all three is desirable, but certainly a president without no pro-life legislation really can be enacted into law unless the president is also pro-life.
Right. And of course, everyone hears a lot about the federal budget these days, you know, with the economy and everything being on a downturn. But what they don't realize is it's the president who submits that budget to Congress for them to be worked out and approved. Well, obviously, a pro-life president is going to make sure certain programs are not funded and other programs are funded. So therefore, if I remember during the Bush administration, we had a lot of money going to faith-based initiatives, pregnancy centers and things of the like. Well, because that was a president who had more of a pro-life heart. Well, so if a president is not in a pro-life way and more pro-abortion, well, what do you think he's going to do? The funds will dry up for those kind of good programs that are really saving babies. So again, people don't think of the budget in terms of the pro-life issue, but it's very important because is Planned Parenthood and those groups going to get more money, or are the groups that are saving unborn babies going to get more money? And a pro-life president will make sure it swings in the right direction.
Right, and a lot of this is hidden behind the scenes, and so it's important to flesh it out. But to recognize in all of this that the president has a very strong leadership capability and needs to use it in the area of pro-life. That's what we hope, at least.
That's right. So don't ever think that, you know, again, I think people very often don't think, they focus, I think, way too much, Father, you probably would agree, on are we going to overturn Roe v. Wade? That seems to be like in people's front of their minds. And they don't see the importance of who we put in office, our steps to bring more protection to the unborn child. You know, we're just so focused on Roe v. Wade, but there's so many steps we can take to save the children, to get more funding to pregnancy centers, to help women who feel they have no choice but abortion. Well, a pro-life president can really help to make sure that those programs are in place.
Absolutely. It's an indispensable thing that we look at these things when we are electing a president.
That's right. Well, you know, Father, we've covered a lot of ground, and I hope everyone really gets out and votes and does their homework to see.
Although this matters to nothing if we don't vote, right?
That's right. We have to get out and vote for put a pro-life president in office, and we'll be doing a great thing. And right now, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to answer questions that you, the viewers, have sent in to us. And we're also going to give you some action steps you can take to help save the unborn. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back to our Defending Life program. And now we're going to have this segment where we're going to take a question from one of our viewers. And today's question, Father Denis, comes from Alondra in Madison, Wisconsin. And she writes, how can we get pro-life and social justice ministries to work together in parishes?
Well, thank you, Alondra, for your question. For years, Priests for Life has been working on this effort to have people in the church realize that efforts for pro-life and efforts for social justice are part of the same effort. In fact, the effort to protect the right to life is the very heart, soul, and foundation of social justice. This is made clear in the Vatican's document, the Compendium of the Social Doctrine of the Church, as well as in Pope Benedict's encyclical on charity and truth. Father Frank Pavone has written a key article on pro-life and social justice in which he points out that there are key themes and principles joining these efforts: the equality of every human being, the principle of non-discrimination, the principle of non-violence. One of the practical things we have done is to have Alveda King, as well as her mother Naomi, issue a powerful statement about the fact that the beloved community for which the civil rights movement fought must include the unborn child. You can see Naomi reading that statement on one of our Defending Life programs. It's also a good idea to try to get groups of people who work on social justice issues together with those who work on pro-life issues and have a mass or joint activity where, for instance, all can pray at an abortion mill and then can help out in a soup kitchen. There's much that can be done on this important topic. And thank you for your question. At any time, you can send your questions to askfatherfrank.com, and we'll be able and glad to answer them for you.
Well, thank you, Father Denis. And I know even if we don't read their question on air, they do get a response to all the questions that come into our office. And we have a beautiful team back at Priests for Life, our public outreach department, and they're there standing by to get the emails, the snail mail, and the phone calls. So people should feel free to contact Priests for Life for any of their questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, now for action, we thought we would talk a little bit about the Silent No More awareness campaign, which, as you know, in 2012 celebrated its 10th anniversary of coming into existence. And we have some brochures here that can kind of help focus people to get involved in the campaign.
Yeah.
The first one here is basically just a basic overview brochure. It talks about what the campaign is about the women regretting their abortion, men regretting lost fatherhood. And I think this, Father, would be probably good in a parish literature act to make people just aware that people are hurting from abortion.
This is a wonderful thing. On this 10th anniversary, 2002, Janet and Georgette Forney, were operative in setting this up, and they had their first, the March for Life back in 2003. I think you were right in the front of it even then,
yes,
and bringing people along there. What is it all about? It's all about really new life. The butterfly indicates new life. It's a new life from the past, which was abortion, and people now who have been reticent about it now see that there are others in the same camp. They've been healed in many ways. And from this, they now can stand up and say, we are silent no more. It's a wonderful thing, and it has brought a number of people to the fore in leadership in the pro-life movement. It's amazing what God can do with the hurting of people when they turn their hearts back to Him and recognize that He is the source of all life. It's beautiful.
Right. Well, then we have another brochure that you just mentioned, the Healing Father. Well, suppose someone's gone through a post-abortion healing program in their parish, a Bible study, or perhaps the Rachel's Vineyard. Well, this is a brochure called What Comes Next. And what this does, it allows the person who's gone through the healing, and I'm sure priests could even use this who've done a spiritual direction with a post-abortive man or woman. It gives them some opportunities of, now that you've gone through healing, how might I get involved with the campaign? Because some people might just want to register anonymously, and we allow that opportunity. Other people might want to write their testimonies. And still others might want to really become a regional coordinator and get more involved. So this brochure, What Comes Next, we encourage people, if you have a post-abortion healing program in your parish or in the pregnancy center or wherever you have that, this What Comes Next brochure is a good thing for them to take after they've completed the healing program.
Yes, it's a very important thing when you lead somebody to a certain point to be able to conclude that, to give them more impetus. And if they have other friends that are doing the same thing, this reinforces that and what they can do next to solve problems for others as well as to continue their healing process.
Right. Well, we have another one here that it's called What's So Bad About Abortion? And actually, Father, it's a little bit funny story behind this one. Georgia and I developed this brochure because we were shut out of a pro-abortion forum. They were having a discussion about what's so bad about abortion. And it was just all groups from the National Organization, NARA. We applied, and with Alveda King, Georgette, and myself, to be part of the panel, and they declined to have us there. So they really didn't want to have an honest discussion about what's so bad about abortion. So we developed this brochure, which basically goes through the reasons, and people don't realize, like, for example, women still die from what they think is safe legal abortion. You know, and of course, physical complications to abortion, psychological problems, and many others in the brochure. And the brochure is also footnoted for the resources. So these are not just statements that, you know, Georgette or I conjured up. They're statements that are backed by actual fact and research.
Right, and it also is from the testimonies as well. People that are, well, when they're giving their testimony, they're showing some of the things that hurt them in their lives that come together, and you can, you know, substitute that and give more of the steps here from that.
And then, speaking of testimonies, that's what we want the people to do, to go to our website, silentnomoreawareness.org, where we have the largest collection of testimonies of men and women who've been hurt by abortion but been found healing. And every day, we highlight on the homepage a new testimony. And again, they're in written text, audio, video files. And I think, Father, for priests, isn't that important for them to sometimes draw from those testimonies in preparing a homily?
Yes, because we're talking about the people themselves, not something that's in a textbook. They're giving their information, they're giving their testimony, they're spilling their heart out, as it were, and telling what they've been through. And I think it's so important for us to listen to that, because I think that's the future of where we're going on this.
And of course, the final brochure really brings it full circle. It's Partners in Healing. And this would explain to any parish or a pro-life group, like a Right to Life group, or even a pregnancy center, how they can partner with the campaign in a more direct way. So this brochure outlines all of that, how they could use the testimonies, how they can put links on their website to ours, because lives are saved, really, by the people who have experienced abortion, influencing a woman who's an abortion-minded.
Yes, exactly. Using things like Facebook and Twitter to be able to, once again, promote that testimony, to give people a real first-hand bit of information that this is real. And that lie that says that there's no after abortion, just forget about it, it's no big deal. People hold that in for so long, and then when they're healed from this, now they can tell the real story that other people knew was happening in their lives, but they weren't able to say.
Yeah, so that's 4 great brochures. That's the Silent No More campaign brochure, What Comes Next, What's So Bad Abortion, and Partners in Healing. They can contact Priests for Life, and we'll get those brochures to them, and perhaps also make your priest or deacons aware of them also.
It should be.
Well, thank you, Father, for this wonderful show we just did. A lot packed with information. And I'd like to offer something to you, our viewers, totally free of charge. To help you prepare for this election, we have the Bishop's study guide for the Bishop's document, Living the Gospel Life. And I'd like to send that to you absolutely free of charge. Also, I'd like you praying for the election. And we have a novena for the election, and we'll send you that prayer card, too, for your prayer group or your parish. And finally, join us next week on Defending Life, where we'll have another exciting program just for you. Thank you, and God bless.